Finance Committee for February 16th will come to order. We have two bills on the agenda. We'll start with House File 4, Senator Mohammed. Welcome to the committee, and please go ahead and present the bill. Please. Go ahead, Senator Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members, for considering our bill today. This is House File 4, also known as amended, also known as driver's licenses for all. And before I dive into the financial aspect of the bill, I would like to present the 818 amendment.
Which amendment?
818.
A18 amendment.
It'll be distributed.
The A18 amendment will be distributed. While it's being distributed, can you explain it or roughly what it's about?
Yes, and council will walk through the amendment, but it essentially further ensures that the bill is in compliance with the federal standard pertaining to CDLs.
Okay. Ms. Stengel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. The change to the bill is on page 3, line 24. The bill currently specifies which types of residents, what types of immigration status.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, we still don't have the amendment. We can't follow along.
Yes,
Ms.
okay.
Stengel.
We'll wait, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Senator, oops. Senator Council, now you can go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. On page 3, line 24 and 25 of the bill, it specifies, it mirrors federal law saying that a person has to have citizenship, lawful permanent residency, or employment authorization to have a CDL. And what the amendment does is takes out those specific statuses and refers more generally to federal law. So the state will follow whatever federal law says on this issue.
Is there discussion on the amendment? If not, all those, Senator Mohammed moves the A18 amendment. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Oh,
Aye.
Senator Pratt.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, I was conferring with our staff because this kind of came as a surprise to us. It's my understanding that these additional belts and suspenders, so to speak, were added in transportation and should probably be left in the bill. We can always come back and amend it later, but you do need an employment authorization document in order to get, to qualify for one of these jobs anyway. So I would ask members to oppose the amendment. I'm not quite sure why we're changing what was done in transportation.
Senator Mohammed.
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, thank you. We're not taking the amendment away from the bill. We're changing some of the language to ensure that we are in standard with the federal laws.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, and I appreciate that, and in many cases, you know, we go above and beyond federal law, and as I understand it, this is currently federal law that we want to memorialize. I am concerned, without having a chance to review this in any depth at all, that this opens it up with some unintended consequences. And so again, Mr. Chair, I would ask members to vote against it, and let's have some more conversation around this change before it gets adopted.
Senator
Chair Marty, Senator Pratt, thank you. I appreciate your comment. I think that we should take up this amendment because this bill has had a number of hearings across different committees, And this is the last stop before it hits the floor, and we want to make sure that the language that we have is one that we're comfortable with and one that's standard with our federal laws. And so that's why we need this amendment to be implemented.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Mohammed. And as my good friend Senator Champion has reminded me on many occasions, this is the Finance Committee, and we try not to do policy and override what the committees have done. As you mentioned, this has had a number of stops, and this hasn't been changed. So I would suggest that we continue to have this discussion and be ready for what I hope would be a bipartisan vote on the floor.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry, I must be missing something. I don't understand what this has to do with Transportation Committee. It seems to me it just has to do with whether a defendant is going to have a lawyer in competency proceedings. I'm actually not even understanding exactly what it has to do with, oh, I'm looking at the wrong bill. No wonder I don't understand. I'm looking at your bill. Never mind.
Further discussion. Senator Eichhorn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to ask a question. I don't serve on transportation, but I did have this on the TV in the office and was listening to it. And I remember this issue did come up at one point, and I did catch a little bit of it. And when the discussion came up, they did oppose this change, and that was the committee that really would have jurisdiction in this area. So if they didn't want to make the change, why are we making it now? I guess I'm kind of confused, since the Transportation Committee, again, the committee that would have jurisdiction over this area of the bill, denied it, why we're trying to switch and do that here.
Senator Champion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the committee. Just as a brief context, there was an amendment that was put forward, or language by Senator Coleman. And Senator Coleman wanted to make sure that there was nothing that was done that violated federal law as it pertains to the commercial driver's license. So this is not stripping her language, it's just making sure that it's appropriate language, and in the spirit of resolution and doing what Senator Coleman wanted, that's when council said, hey, for this language that she has asked for, here's how it has to be done in order to make sure her intent, and when I use her, I'm talking about Senator Coleman's intent, is carried out. So it's really to really do exactly what Senator Coleman was asking for. So if you don't want your colleague's language, okay, but that's the whole reason for it.
Mr. Chair, unfortunately, Senator Coleman's not here to defend herself, but from what I remember and what I'm hearing from staff. We good?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. That both this language that's currently in the unofficial engrossment that were in front of us and the amendment were both discussed, and that committee decided to stay with the language that's currently in the unofficial engrossment, so.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Champion.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
Are
to
you
cut you
done,
off.
Senator Eichhorn?
Yeah, go ahead.
Senator Champion.
Mr. Chair, just for clarity again, it wasn't as if they didn't decide to accept this language. This language as before you was not put before that committee. What was language to deal with this specific issue. And it was council who came and said, hey, by the way, if you want to do this, here's how that language must be done. So we think that it would be appropriate to adopt it. In the event that Senator Coleman rejects it, there is always an opportunity for that to happen. She'll be on the floor with the rest of us. But in the spirit of trying to be true to what she asked, that's why Senator Mohammed worked with council in order to make sure that this language was appropriate. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Champion, is it your testimony now that this was a recommendation by council? They recommended that you make this change?
So, Senator, Chair and Senator Pratt, it is my understanding that that Senate Council was worked with Senator Mohammed and us. And when I say Senator Mohammed, I'm saying both of us because we are joined at the hip. So there are things that she, discusses. So it was in the spirit of making sure that the language complied with federal law, but also the spirit of what Senator Coleman mentioned, which is why they worked with counsel, or she worked with counsel in order to make sure that this was appropriate.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you. Senator Mohammed, did you work with, did you review this language with Senator Coleman?
Chair Marty, Senator Pratt, I haven't had a chance to speak with Senator Coleman, but when she brought up the amendment in transportation, we accepted it, even though it was last minute and we weren't ready for it. But we worked with council, with the community to ensure that this language is in standard with federal regulations.
Senator Pratt.
I'll defer to Senator.
Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Mohammed. I am, reading through this, understanding what it is that you're trying to accomplish with the amendment, and understand that we are moving from here with this bill to the floor. On my way here, I actually ran into Senator Coleman, but she was walking in the other direction. Will you talk with Senator Coleman about this amendment before we get to the floor and debate this?
Chair Marty, Senator Murphy, I will.
Thank you.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, well, I would respectfully ask that maybe the A18 be taken, withdrawn for now, and let's have that conversation with Senator Coleman, Senator Jasinski, and let's make sure that there are no unintended consequences to doing this. It's caught us by surprise. It was not a recommendation by council. Council made a recommendation when approached by the senators. But to say that this was merely a technical fix, I think, is still undetermined, and I would appreciate more conversation that hopefully, again, we can have a bipartisan vote, and we have the Transportation Committee members weigh in on this policy change.
Senator Champion.
Mr. Chair, to the committee, I respectfully disagree, would hope that we would pass this amendment because it's what was discussed in another committee. I get that. There's still a pathway and an opportunity and a commitment from us to have a conversation with Senator Coleman in order to make sure that that language works. In the event that there needs to be recommended changes, we certainly will do that because the spirit is what we all agree on. So it isn't as if we are trying to reverse something that was agreed to and asking this committee to make a change. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Pratt.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for that, Senator Champion. I believe that you're not trying to make any changes, but I also understand that there have been unintended consequences. It seems to me the cleaner way to do this would be to leave the existing language that was passed by the Transportation Committee and have the conversation with Senator Coleman and Senator Jasinski rather than changing it in finance and then having to change it back on the floor, I think is a more difficult, again, I think we can have a bipartisan vote, but Mr. Chair, I would, if Senator Mohammed is unwilling to withdraw the amendment, have the conversations with the senators who drafted the original amendment onto the bill, then I would request that members oppose the amendment. And let's just get it done the right way. Let's get it done on the floor with, if it's really supposed to be technical and non-controversial.
If there are no further discussion on the A8, Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, in light of the discussion, Senator Mohammed, if Senator Coleman does tell you she doesn't see it the same way you do or has trouble with it, are you going to withdraw or open to changing it at that point too then?
Senator Mohammed.
Chair Marty, Senator Westrom, my goal for the amendment today is to ensure that we are following federal standards and that the language is clear for everybody who's going to be able to see it in the public. And this language does that. My hope is that Senator Coleman will be able to accept our language because we accepted her amendment. And now we're making it clear.
So Mr. Chair,
Senator Westrom.
Senator Mohammed, you're saying if she doesn't like this change, you're going to go with it anyways?
Chair Marty, Senator Westrom, we will work with her to figure out something that works if this doesn't work for her.
No further discussion. Those in favor of A18 amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion, chair's in doubt. All those in favor, raise your hands. Those opposed? Motion does prevail.
Mr. Chair,
Senator Pratt.
I believe that would be a 5-5 split. The motion should not prevail because it doesn't have a majority.
All those in favor, raise your hand. 6-5. Okay, further discussion of the HF 4. Senator Pratt.
I'd like to offer the A13 amendment.
A13 amendment should be in packets. Senator Pratt, go ahead and explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I've been told this is a relatively technical amendment. Ms. Stengel can explain it.
Mr. Chair, members, I'll start with a little bit of reversing on the amendment. So looking at the A13 on line,
Mr. Chair, we don't have the amendment, so we don't know what's going on here.
Sorry, it was in packets here, not over there. I'm sorry. Okay, now that we have the amendment. Go ahead, Ms. Stein.
thank you, Mr. Chair and members. You'll see on the amendment on line 14, it deletes the phrase "under penalty of perjury." That corresponds to page 3, line 17 of the bill. And what that says is that a person must declare under the penalty of perjury that the applicant's residence is in Minnesota. However, looking at current law, everything on an application for any type of driver's license is already attested to under the penalty of perjury. So this ended up having a penalty of perjury in two places, which is kind of confusing. So the amendment deletes the second reference of penalty of perjury, and you'll see in lines 3 through 13 of the amendment, the current law that requires everything on any sort of application, including a non-compliant driver's license and all of the other types, is sworn under penalty of perjury that everything is accurate.
And Senate Counsel, the other part of the amendment? I'm sorry, I missed what you said about that first part. Okay. Senator, who had their hand up? Nobody, okay. Further discussion of this, Senator Mohammed.
Mr. Chair, after consulting with Senator Mohammed, we will see the A13 amendment as a friendly amendment.
Further discussion of A13 amendment. If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Further discussion on the bill. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there anyone from DVS here that can answer some questions?
Yes, they indicate so. Senator Pratt.
Good morning. Could I have our testifier introduce himself?
Please go ahead and,
Mr. Chair, members, my name is Pong Zhang, Director of the Driver and Vehicle Service Division.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. In the fiscal note, it looks like the funding source that's been discussed for this bill is the Vehicle Services Fund.
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, that is correct.
Mr. Chair?
go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Johns, I'm just wondering, can you explain to me the Vehicle Services Fund, what it, how it is funded and what it's intended for? Mr.
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, the Vehicle Services account is funded with vehicle transactions, there are different revenue sources via vehicle transactions. And it is my understanding that the the vehicle services operating account was appropriated to service or to fund services to provide vehicle service to the state of Minnesota.
To fund vehicle services, and what would vehicle services be comprised of?
Mr.
I'm
Chair-
sorry, I wasn't in transportation, so I'm trying to get a sense of the funding source and. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, there are a number of services that DVS offers in the vehicle service arena. Just as a few examples, sticker or renewals would be under that umbrella, VIN inspections, and some shared support services like managing finances and accounting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And there's also a driver services account, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, that is correct.
And Mr. Johns, can you explain to me how the driver services fund is funded and what its intended purpose is?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, the driver services operating account is funded through revenues driven by driver transactions. These are credentials and fees related to drivers' transactions. These fees.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
May we have
Yes,
some word,
yes,
please?
Let's keep noise down. It's a very small room and hard to hear in here. Thank you. Please continue.
I'm sorry, Mr. Johns, could you repeat your answer? I was distracted by the conversation behind me.
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt,
Mr. Chair, before we get started, can we take conversations
Yes,
outside?
please go outside if you have to have continued conversations. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, the driver services operating account is funded through driver transactions that bring in revenues to those accounts. Things such as credential, driver, or identification transactions, and fees related to drivers related issues. It's my understanding that the driver services operating account is used to fund the driver services that DVS provides to the state of Minnesota, such as providing exams, evaluating credentials, and also a portion of that to our support functions such as finances and accounting.
Further discussion. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So before I asked it, Mr. Johns, you said you felt the vehicle services account was an appropriate source for these, for this purpose. Can you explain to me why, when you've kind of outlined that the vehicle service account is really for sticker renewal and inspection, and it comes from transactions related specifically to the vehicle, and the driver services account comes from transactions specifically tied to the driver's license, like credentialing and exams, which is specifically what we're talking about in this bill?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, these two accounts fund the entire services for the Driver and Vehicle Services Division. That's all services that are provided. These two accounts have historically funded, but when necessary, have transactions or funding moved from one source to the other to fund those types of transactions. In that spirit, we feel that it is appropriate to use the health of the vehicle services account to fund this work.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Chong are one of the authors. So I'm just trying to understand the difference between the fiscal note that we have, which looks like it was provided for the House, which looks like a request of, 1.9 million in '24 and 1.233 million in '25, and the bill itself, which looks like it's an appropriation of 1.4 and 1.4 in the next year. And then the base at 891. And then my second question, I have a second question. Thank you.
Mr. Nauman, I think we will need him to go through the fiscal note.
Are we intending to do that?
Yeah, we.
Oh, okay, I'll wait then till we go through the fiscal note. Thank you.
Maybe we, can do that
Mr.
now.
Chair,
Senator
if
Pratt.
you'd like Mr. Nauman to walk through the entire fiscal note before I continue my questions, I'd be happy to do that.
Sure, let's go ahead and do that, because I think most of the questions should be related to this. So, yeah.
So, Mr. Chair and members, just for clarity, we have the fiscal note to House File 4 in front of us. The first engrossment is just on timing issues, that's the fiscal note that we have in front of us, but it's our understanding this.
These microphones are very short compared to the ones we're used to, so please speak in them, yes.
Madam Chair and Senator, we have the fiscal note to House File 4 in front of us, matching up with the engrossment. I think the easiest way to think about this, I'll offer a quick summary. There's a lot of detail in the fiscal note itself. In fiscal year '24, there are $1.5 million of scored costs, of which there's some internal programming that the agency says that it can internalize, leaving a $1.45 million cost. There are revenues of $361,000. The fiscal year '25 effect is 1.4, so 2.8 total scored costs for fiscal year, for the biennium. Revenues in fiscal '25 are 180. The costs go down somewhat in fiscal years '26 and later, $891,000 with, again, revenues of 180. So on the front page, the net effect is $1 million in '24, 1.2 in '25, and then $711,000 on an ongoing basis. Most of the costs identified are for additional staffing work associated with the increased credential applications. There's a series of assumptions that are made in the fiscal note about the timing, as well as the amount of when those increased applications, increased credentialing would occur. And again, as has been discussed, the appropriation on page 9 of the fiscal note, or of the bill itself, appropriates the value and then the total costs that I identified, and then there will be revenue coming in to get to that net number.
Senator,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we don't reflect in the appropriations section kind of the net number.
Mr. Chair and Senator Pappas, as is typical in a circumstance like this, we appropriate the total appropriation reflected in the fiscal note, and then there are revenues coming in. So if you were to do a fiscal tracking on this bill itself, you would score the appropriation, you'd score the revenue, and then you'd have the net
Separately.
at the bottom.
Okay, thank you. I was kind of surprised to see the large number of potential applicants. I mean, that's kind of, I don't know what the word I want to use, but it really shows that how important this bill is, that we get people licensed and driving legally.
So, Madam Chair and Senator, in the fiscal note assumptions, the fiscal note identifies that there is a potential pool of 81,000 individuals without legal immigration status. They then net that down to individuals over the age of 16, our age of driver eligibility. Of those, they assume, so that gets you down to 77,000, and then they make some percentage allocations and some assumptions about how many times an individual would need to take the test to be successful. And it's roughly two times on the average. And then assuming when those would occur. So to your point, there's on page 3 of the fiscal note, there's some robust information for members about how the numbers are calculated. And then that, of course, turns into staffing requirements.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Nauman. And Mr. Chairman, I also note that the department is saying they cannot meet current demand for applications. And I know that over the past few years, we have certainly had constituent complaints about waiting lists and how long it took to get their driver's test. So we really see how this department needs assistance for current demand and this new demand. And also, I hope they're going to be able to find people to hire. Maybe there's some people in the room that want to apply for jobs with DBS.
Senator Pratt.
Well, thank you, Sorry, I forgot. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mr. John. So you're taking this from the vehicle services account, which comes from tabs and titling of specific vehicles versus the transactions that are being generated specifically by driver's license transactions. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, that is correct. We are recommending this to come from the vehicle services operating account because the health of that account can afford this proposal.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're taking it from the vehicle services account simply because it has money in it versus where it should be more appropriately dispersed from. Is that your testimony?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, the vehicle services operating account and the driver services operating account, depending on the health of the accounts, have had transfers back and forth, depending on the need of the accounts. This account, we're open to the semantics of how we move or get to the right funding. The health of the vehicle services account is the reason why we recommended this bill be funded out of it.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I noticed in fiscal year '22, there was a $5 million transfer from the vehicle services account to the driver services account. Was that a legislative transfer, or was that an administrative transfer?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, all transfers from these appropriations are through legislation.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So as you were saying, the driver services account is actually, will finish fiscal '22 with a $4.6 million budgetary balance because you keep a 60-day operating buffer, as well as, and I'm not quite sure what the capital reserve is in the driver services account. Can you explain that?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, the operating reserve is set aside for requests to make capital or to make capital repairs. It is just an accounting mechanism to set funding aside in the case where we need to do things like resurface the roads or make large repairs to the buildings.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you tell me what the balance of the driver services account is?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, I do not have the exact balance in front of me right now.
But you'll be happy to share it.
Mr. Chair.
Happy to share the balance with this committee.
Mr. Chair, in a document that was shared with the Transportation Committee, it shows there's an estimated 251,000 that we will end the FY '23 with. But when you subtract out the 6.8 million of 60-day operating revenue that they use as a cushion, and the $5 million in capital revenue, they expect to be at 11 point roughly $6 million budget deficit. Let's say we do away with the capital reserve, you're still at a $6 million budget deficit. Does that sound about right in the driver services?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, and thank you for Senate Finance to provide this document. That is correct, that your reading of that, and I'll note that in the governor's budget proposal, we have proposals to address the health of the driver services operating account.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Johns, while you're proposing that we continue to take this out of the vehicle services account, unrelated revenues to driver's license in perpetuity, is that correct? That's what the fiscal note states.
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, that is our recommendation.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you. And Mr. Johns, we expect to bring in first year 361,000, second year 180,000 of new revenues into the account to support the activities that are denoted in the fiscal note, which don't make up, which don't cover the expenses. So where will the balance of those expenses come from?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, our revenues come from a number of sources, and they pay for all the services that DVS provides. When we look at individual services and the revenues they bring in, oftentimes those revenues or those services far exceed the revenue that work brings in. But it holistically, transactions across the entire driver and vehicle services is what funds both those accounts, and we use that funding to fund all the work that we do for the state of Minnesota.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Johns, is it fair to presume that the shortfall under collection of fees relative to the expenses will effectively draw down the balance of the vehicle services account?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, our estimates for the vehicle services operating account show that the future balance, the forecasted balance of the account will be able to support this work going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Johns, but that wasn't my question. My question was, can we presume that we'll continue to draw down on this account such that it may not be as healthy as the estimates show today?
Mr. Chair, Senator Pratt, that is correct, that as proposed, it would continue to be funded out of the vehicle services operating account.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. I appreciate your testimony. Mr. Chair, I'd like to offer the A15 amendment.
Senator Pratt offers A15. Senator Pratt, on the A15 amendment.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and yeah, I want to thank DVS for clarifying what was going on before I offered the amendment. Mr. Chair, the amendment simply changes the funding source. We have vehicle services account, we have a driver services account that collect user fees in order to support their activities. And as DVS testified, the only reason we're taking it from the vehicle services account is because that has a positive balance, while driver services, which should be supporting this activity, will be running in the red by the next biennium. And so it seems more appropriate to me, rather than transferring those user fees over in perpetuity for an unrelated activity, that those should be supported by the general fund.
Senator Mohammed or Senator Champion?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for consideration of this matter. We are asking that the committee not accept the A15 amendment, and here's why. The department has spoke eloquently about the practices and how they view these two accounts and how revenue goes back and forth between these accounts in order to make sure that they are taking care of the business of Minnesota. So our agency has spoken. We believe that this is the best way to proceed as articulated by the department, and for that reason that we are asking you as a committee to not vote for the A15 amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Champion. But, Senator Champion, the source of the funding is not coming from the activities that it is meant to support. And I really doubt that people who are paying increased tab fees, paying for inspections, as was described as the fees going into the vehicle services account, and that it actually takes an act of the legislature, like we're doing today, to move those fees. I think it's inappropriate that we are drawing down fees that we've told Minnesotans are for a specific purpose, to fund another purpose. When we have a projected $18 billion surplus, a $6 billion structural surplus, to continue to draw down on those fees, unrelated fees, I think is a bad practice by us and an inappropriate use of those funds. And you and I have served on transportation in the past, and we've talked about these two accounts, and in the past, driver and vehicle services, in fact, I think they originally testified that they did not support these funds coming, and it was only in a later committee that they changed their mind. I think we owe it to Minnesotans to be transparent. I think we owe it to Minnesotans that when they pay the fees for their tabs, that it goes to support the activities of having vehicles on the road, and when they pay their fees for driver's licenses, that those fees go to supporting the activities of issuing driver's licenses. And we have these as separate accounts. As Mr. Johns testified, it takes a legislative action to transfer $5 million from one account to the other, which means that we do have some expectation that there's a specific use for these monies. And if the driver services account does not have enough money to support it, rather than rating an account that has a fund balance, we should take it out of the general fund. And let's be transparent with Minnesotans that this is what it's going to cost. And we can always change we have a whole budget cycle. We are spending money outside of targets and outside of budget cycles and setting up new bases. Let's be transparent now with the funding, and let's change it through the budget cycle if that's what we decide to do. But today, I think we have to be consistent with the message of why we've told Minnesotans they're paying fees, they're paying taxes, and what they're being used for.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Champion.
Thank you, Senator Pratt, for your thoughts and your articulation of your perspective. I'd like to go back to what Mr. Johns said, and perhaps we may not always agree, but we should always make sure that we are thinking about what the department has articulated. First of all, the department talked about the two accounts, one from services where they do stickers and renewals and inspections and shared support services. And then they said there was the driver services fund where they do driver's transactions, but they look at these two accounts as one because it's for the business of Minnesota and Minnesotans. We also should be very clear about this process is transparent. We are having hearings, it's broadcasted around the state. They've come before this committee and others to testify as to what their thoughts are and why. That's been done in the open. It's not hidden. We don't have a situation where we did one thing and then they decide to go back and do something different. It's been very transparent, and we've heard it in these hearings and the testimony. But here's the other thing. We as Minnesotans entrust our agencies to do what's in the best interest of Minnesotans. And yes, we can test that, and we can, ask the important and relevant questions, and we will continue to do so. But we have a department who said very clearly as to what is their preferred way of doing it, and they know their practices. It's not for any strange purposes. They talk about how they do these things in the best interest of Minnesotans and to make sure that they are taking care of Minnesota's business. It is for that reason that I think we should trust the department and the decision that they made. And in the event that they conclude that something needs to be different, they can certainly come back to this legislature and ask for something to be different. But we should trust the direction that has been provided, the information that has been given, and I would ask that the committee reject the A15 amendment.
Senator Pratt, then Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Senator Champion. We have two separate accounts. Statutorily, we have two separate accounts that are funded through different funding mechanisms. And while I agree that this proceeding has been public, the fact is we're using monies that were collected for a different purpose to fund this activity today. Minnesotans did not know that when they were paying those taxes. And it seems to me, and so while driver services, our DVS may say that they view them as one account, they haven't viewed them as one account in the past, that statutorily they are not one account. It requires a legislative action in order to move those funds. And again, and we're putting a permanent draw on an unrelated account. I think if Vehicle Services wants to make a change to these accounts, they ought to be working through the Transportation Committee rather than bypassing current statute and trying to fund these activities. Because the activities that we're talking about are the activities that Mr. Johns testified come out of driver and vehicle service, or out of the driver services account. They are for examinations and they're for evaluating credentials. And rather than drawing this down, as Mr. Johns said, has the potential of drawing this account in perpetuity, I believe we ought to fund it through the general fund, and let's just be straightforward with it.
Senator Champion first.
And just briefly, Mr. Chair, just so that no one is misled and that the public is not misled. this
Excuse me,
bill-
Mr. Chair, I'm not misleading the public, and I take offense to that.
Just let Senator Champion continue.
Mr. Chair and Pratt, I didn't get a chance to make my statement. So I'm saying, just so the public is not misled, this bill did go through the Transportation Committee, and the Transportation Committee did review everything that is before this body, even as to where the funds were going to go and which account. So so when I made the statement, I'm not impugning what you said or anything. I'm saying for clarity, from my vantage point, I want to make sure that the public is really clear that it did go through Transportation, and Transportation did evaluate this as well. And we are here before the Finance Committee because this is another layer to what has already been discussed and wrestled with from the Transportation Department. Or Transportation Committee, let me say. Clarity is good for the soul.
On the Pratt A15 amendment. Senator Franz, go ahead. Okay. Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Champion. While I agree it went through the Transportation Committee, this is the Finance Committee. We do determine where and how things are funded. And I think whether or not this was, I don't know how in-depth this was discussed at the Transportation Committee. The feedback I got was slightly different than what you articulated, and I'll go back and take a look at it. But Mr. Chair, this seems like a no-brainer to take this from the general fund rather than vehicle services account and continue to draw on that account, take a healthy fund to potentially deficit fund like we currently see the driver services account is expected to be in deficit. Mr. Chair, let's just do this right.
On the amendment, I heard Senator Westrom wanted to speak briefly, and then let's vote on this. Senator Westrom, go
Mr. Chair, Mr. John, in the vehicle services account, you said there's several sources of revenue. Is there any revenue in there from the gas tax fund that was collected on gas tax and motor vehicle transfers?
Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, it is my understanding that all funds in the vehicle service, all revenue in the vehicle services operating account are from vehicle transactions performed by DVS or our business partners only, not through any other funds or taxes.
So, Mr. John, Mr. Chair, Mr. John, is there any money that's used from the highway user fund that gets put into the user or the vehicle services fund?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, there has been a historical funding from the HUTD account that you're referencing, the Highway Use Fund, that is no longer being appropriated to the Department of and to Driver and Vehicle Services Division.
And Mr. Chair, Mr. John, when you say no longer, how long ago did that change and what caused that change?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, I don't have, I wasn't around when that decision was made, so I can't speak to the purpose of that. But it is my understanding that in fiscal year '22 was the last bit of funding that was provided. It was prorated for that fiscal year, and in this fiscal year, we have zero funding from that account or that appropriation.
And Mr. Chair, Mr. John, is that your intended policy going forward, to not be using highway HUTV money in this fund as well? Continue that policy?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, DVS utilizes the funding that is appropriated to the division. We do not have an opinion or a stance on where that funding comes from. We will leverage the funding that is appropriated to us.
Mr. Chair, that raises an interesting point or scenario we're finding ourselves in, because if you're going to be in a deficit situation with an expenditure here that's far beyond what the fees collected on it will pay, what's going to stop HUTV funds from all of a sudden backfilling this, which are supposed to be dedicated directly to building highways? So have you thought through that situation? Because it seems like this is your recommendation in the first place. The proponents of the bill and others are looking to you for guidance. So can you talk to the committee about what have you thought about this situation to sustain this expenditure that's far greater than the revenue it brings in?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, this proposal and the costs associated to this proposal can be supported by the Vehicle Services Operating Account. In our forecasted amounts, there is enough balance and health in that account to support this work ongoing. In terms of the Driver Services Operating Account and the health of that, or the lack of health of that account, we have provided several proposals which are included in the governor's budget proposal that will address the health of those accounts. And we're happy to continue that conversation with the legislature.
Thank you. On the A15 amendment, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion does not prevail. Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair Marty. I have the A17 amendment I'd like to offer.
A17, it's being distributed.
Thank you. Okay.
Senator Draheim on the A17 amendment.
Thank you, Chair. Members, pretty straightforward amendment here. When you're reviewing page 3 of the fiscal note, which was touched on earlier a little bit, there's quite a few assumptions in here. And my amendment kind of matches what the fiscal note says kind of in the middle of page 3. And kind of cuts the tails down to the appropriate projection given in the fiscal note.
Okay, Mr., 707,000, where in the fiscal note are you getting that one?
So when you look at kind of the middle, there's an assumption of that 77,000, and then the 20% that would utilize, and then it goes down to 10% after that. So just building on that, we cut the FTEs, but not really enough. This would kind of pair up to what the fiscal note says, kind of in the middle.
Mr. Nauman, can you help on this?
Mr. Chair, is it the author's intent Senator Draheim, maybe you can help me think through out loud what your intention is here. There is a revenue source of $180,000 assumed in the fiscal note itself. And I'll be honest, I'm thinking this through as we're talking. Is the intent to land at a net effect of 707? Maybe if I can ask you to take a look at the fiscal note on page 2. You'll see under the state cost savings chart, there is a revenue of $180,000 that is assumed to be raised by the bill. If the intent is to land at a net 711 in the fiscal note, and maybe I'm missing something here, I'm curious if maybe we need to not over-appropriate, but appropriate a higher amount to land at a net.
Senator Draheim.
But does he want to land at that number?
Mr. Chair,
Senator Pratt.
if I may interrupt.
I see.
Mr. Chair, I believe Senator Draheim amendment is to reduce the money so that the FTEs are in fact reduced down to 8. We increase FTEs by 16 in the first year to cover the higher volume. We expect that volume to be cut in half, and therefore we expect the number of FTE needed to be cut in half.
Thank you. Comments from author of the bill?
Thank you,
Senator Chambliss.
Mr. Chair. Thank you to Senator Draheim for the amendment. Members, we are asking you to vote no on the A17 amendment. Even though the argument has been that there's assumptions and you're trying to line up the decrease based on some of the assumptions, they are just that, they're assumptions, because this is something that is being done. The agency has spoken clearly as to what they need in order to make sure they can resource this initiative and this program in a way that we all will be proud, from verifications to all the other information that it takes. That's why you need FTEs, so that they can go through and do the work that is necessary along with the training. So we are asking the committee not to decrease the amount as articulated in the A17 and to say no.
Thank you. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Senator Draheim's comment was similar to the one that I made before Mr. Naumann explained, that the revenue does show up it will show up on the spreadsheet. And so this is like a reduction, not kind of acknowledging that the revenue is already accounted for on the spreadsheet. And I really didn't understand what Senator Pratt said at all about FTE, because 16 to 8, I didn't think that was really, sorry, Senator Pratt, I didn't really get that. I think it was relevant.
Mr. Chair and Senator Pappas, it's probably behooves me to clarify, because as I was thinking through what was being done here, I misstated, I think, the intention of the amendment. I think what Senator Pratt clarified that Senator Draheim's intention was to simply reduce the appropriation value to reduce the FTEs in half. So we're not trying to manage to a net number in particular. I think the intention of the amendment, and if I misstate this, others can correct me, that the intent is just to reduce the overall FTEs in half.
Further discussion? If not, on the Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to clarify for everyone out there, as we roll out this program, the Department of Vehicle Services estimates that we'll need 12 exam people, but then we add 4 administrative people behind the scenes. And we expect to cut the exam people down in half, from 12 to 6, but we leave in perpetuity the 4 administrative people. And it seems to me that if we are going to be, and Senator Pappas, you're absolutely right, there is $180,000 coming in from fees. Those are fees coming in from tabs and licenses, not from the activity that is being generated here. That was what the last amendment was about. but doesn't cover the full cost of those administrative people. And I'll even acknowledge that there may be some permanent administrative needs that are out there. And I think you said it before, the agency is currently understaffed. But that's not the purpose of this bill, is to bring the agency whole. That's the purpose of the targets and the budget discussion that we're going to be having later in the session. And we should be doing the work specifically on this bill. And all we're simply asking is that we reduce the amount of the administrative staff in half as well, to match what the expected volume is going to be. And I think that brings us into, Senator Champion, I hope I don't offend you by saying this, but a more honest perspective of where this bill is and what is truly needed. Not that I'm insinuating dishonesty in any way, I didn't mean to say that, but my thesaurus is not working as well as it usually does. And so let's just cover the costs that are needed. If DVS says the volume's going to be cut in half, then we should be reducing the headcount in half as well across the board.
Further discussion on A17? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion does not prevail. Further discussion on the bill? If not, Senator Westrom.
Mr. Chair, issue I want to talk a little bit more, if Mr. John could answer some more questions. Mr. John, how is the department going to handle a big number of new applicants for driver's license, both for processing and getting through driver's exams? Maybe you can explain the process to us briefly that the department is going to go through. I assume everybody applying is going to have to do their driver's ed test, education and driving exams and training. Is that correct?
Mr. Shaw.
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, thank you for that question. In thinking about this proposal, we really took kind of a three-pronged approach to this work, which the first of which is to increase the number of examiners, because we know that some proportion of this population will be seeking a driver's license, and they'll need to take a driver's exam, both a written and a skills test. And that is the intention of those positions. We also include 2 administrative staff to support the issuance process, which is the review of these applications. There will be several new documents that DVS will be taking on and needing to take a review of before we approve applications for issuance. And then lastly, 2 support staff to train all of our deputy registrars, our driver's license agents, partners in this work, also train our own staff, and also to stay current on credentials as they, or on source documents. As this evolves and this grows, we anticipate that we need to stay abreast of those changes of international documents so that DVS can have assurance that we're issuing the right credentials to the right people.
And Mr. Chair, Mr. John, how many people are you anticipating in the first year or couple of 2 years, applying and seeking the driver's license?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom.
Under this bill?
Yeah. As our fiscal note states, we assume that 20% of the total population, and these numbers are estimates of what we think will happen, but we think 20% of the population will make an attempt to receive a credential in that first year, and then 10% following. What we didn't note in this fiscal note is that the growth of these applications. We don't think that this is a static population, that while there are estimates of 81,000 non-documented in Minnesota right now, that is an estimate, and we will need to continue to see where this grows before we can make better estimates on what that actual work looks like.
And Mr. Chair, Mr. John, that's the numbers you're working off, of 20% of 80,000, so over, of 81,000, so over 16,000 applicants in the first year and over 8,000 applicants each year after. That's your assumption at this point?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, that is correct.
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. John, what is the current delay for residents in Minnesota to get their driver's exam scheduled and taken? What's your average monthly delay right now? Because that number's been pretty high. What can you tell us is happening right now?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, if you give me 1 second, I actually have those numbers in front with me, and I'm just gotta find my document. And, okay. So, Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, at the moment, we actually have, in every region of Minnesota, we have 10, we dissect the state of Minnesota into 10 regions. We have availability for appointments in all 10 regions as of today. Now, that is through the work of the staff and the efficiencies that we've been trying to figure out and implement to make sure that we can be ready for Minnesotans when they want to, and they're ready to take their road tests. At this moment, we have availability in all the regions.
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. John, you're using the word regions. How far are you saying people have to drive to get a test under the current system that we have? Because are you telling me that immediate test exams are available in every region right now? Double part of the question. How far are you suggesting they have to drive? And are you saying that immediate examinations are available in every region of the state right now?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, we have 93 exam stations that we've reopened since January of 2022. In those regions, I don't have the exact distances from one exam station to another, but they cover the state of Minnesota. In each of those regions, we have, all of our exam stations are appointment-based, and so we are asking Minnesotans to schedule an appointment, and we are no longer using the practice of a walk-in appointment in all of our regions, because not every exam station is open every day of the week. In every region, we have exam appointments open as of today.
So, Mr. Chair and Mr. John, and what I think the committee needs to better understand what the current system is. The idea of taking an exam used to be a week or two, or not that far out, you'd have to schedule it. Mr. John, what is your agency's information right now saying is the general waiting time for the exam, people trying to schedule an exam? Because less than a year ago, it was upwards of 6 months or longer. What is your current estimated time based on what you're telling us right now?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, the demand for exams flow and have some seasonality to them. At this time of the year, we do see a lower demand for exams, and rightfully, Minnesotans may not want to take their road tests on snowy and icy roads. That upticks in the spring and in the summer seasons and into the fall. I think this summer, while I don't have the exact dates for wait times, there were several weeks, times throughout the summer that we didn't have any availability at any of our exam stations. And it's hard, we do not currently have a way to track a way for how long people have been wanting an exam and when they actually receive an exam. We know that there are about 70,000 permit holders right now that don't have an exam. And that might be a choice that they're not ready to come test yet. They may not want to test at all, or they may not be able to get in. There is a constant backlog of permits that are ready to test according to our records, that either choose to not make an appointment or cannot get an appointment.
So Mr. Chair, Mr. John, how many, what's your average each year of training and completing a driver's license exam? What's the general flow that goes through your department? If you could share that with the committee.
Senator Westrom, I think this is a very important discussion for Transportation Committee, and I'm very sensitive to the fact that we've had a shortage of this. I think we've underfunded the department in terms of driver's exam professionals, and I hope we can do that, and I think we should pass that on to Senator Dibble and the Transportation Committee, but that's a broader discussion. I think it's a very important one I'm very concerned about, but I think I'd like to get us moving on this.
Mr. Chair, are you trying to cut me off, or what are you trying to do?
No, I'm trying to suggest that maybe some of this discussion might move to the broader budget discussion in Transportation Committee, because I think you and a lot of us have been hearing from constituents about the long waits, and so this is interesting and it's related to the bill, but I also think much of that discussion is a broader discussion for Transportation Committee. So I'll ask you to go ahead if you have another question or two, but I hope we can move on the bill soon.
Well, Mr. Chair, this all relates to what we're funding. Is it going to be adequate? And what are we asking current residents of Minnesota to change, or what are the expectations? And so I think it's all very appropriate to this bill and to the Finance Committee, which is generally the last stop before it gets to the big show on the floor. And I think we should have those answers before we just send it to the floor. But, Mr. Chair, I'll continue and try to be brief.
Senator Westrom, you
that's
may
possible.
continue, try and be brief about, and again, my pitch was I did not support the amendment to reduce the funding in the last amendment, because I'm very concerned about the exam folks. So go ahead and continue with your questions, just try and be brief.
So, Mr. Chair, Mr. John, if you could answer the question I asked, what do we have typically going through your department? What's your estimate for how many exams do you do and how many students do we train? I'm trying to get the depth and brevity of this bill compared to the current system. Can we handle it? Is this adequate? And so if you could give us that picture so we know how many more 16,000 or more will be in the current system.
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, in calendar year 2022, this last year, we offered we provided 141,000 Class D road tests. We know that drivers oftentimes need to take the road tests multiple times. And so for every one driver, we estimate between 1.6 and 1.9 road tests per permit holder. According to those estimates, using that range, we should really be offering something upwards of 160 to 180,000 Class D road tests. And again, these are estimates. These assume that permit holders will continue to see consistent volumes and population of permit holders. But we know that even with 141,000, which was a record for DVS, a number we're very proud of, we know that wasn't enough in calendar year 22. And we know that we need to bring that number up to meet the needs of Minnesotans.
Well, Mr. Chair, and Mr. John, one thing that would be interesting in that number is in 2022, you were coming out of an incredible backlog of pent-up demand. So I wonder if that number is going to stay that high. But if we're having trouble serving that, it does give me great concern that we're going to add this much more pressure to the system that recently was hemorrhaging. And I share that with you because in the last little over a year, I went through this whole process with my own kids. And we had to plan out 6 months and drive across the state to get that driver's exam. And if we're going to add this much to the system, it is a concern. But Mr. John, if you could also share with me, just do we have the capacity in the system with trainers and educators? Because that's the beginning end of this. And then I have one more couple questions relating to this, and then I'm done, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, the Department of Public Safety Driver and Vehicle Services, we do certify driver's ed instructors, and I believe that's what you're referencing. We provide the instruction manual for those students. We do not see a shortage of driver's ed instructors. We don't know what the demand for driver's ed, that's not something that the department currently tracks. But we have seen a steady number of driver's ed instructors in our system.
And Mr. John, am I correct in assuming any of these applicants are going to have to go through that same process of classroom training and hours of driving with their permit and so on, or can you just shed that light on with us as a committee so we can understand what's going to happen going forward?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, this credential would require will have the same requirements for any Minnesotan who wishes to obtain a driving credential. If they're under the age of 18, they are required to go through driver's ed and do their hours and wait the appropriate amount of time before they can make an appointment for the road test. Those who are 19 have to wait 3 months before they can take the road test after application of their permit or and successful completion of their written exam. And then anyone over the age of 20 or older needs to complete the written exam, and then following can take the road test.
Okay. And so, Mr. John, what do we have, what's the current process for examiners to make sure they can read the road signs and everything like that? And do we have any concern that there's going to be more need for translation or other things? Or what's the current status of a person getting a driver's license as part of the testing? Is there a way to ensure that the road signs are and everything on the roads that they have to read is in fact able to be followed well?
Mr. Chair, Senator Westrom, DVS offers their written exam in multiple languages. We do our best to meet Minnesotans where they're at and and serve them in a way that is meaningful. We seek to offer more languages in that space. In terms of the road test itself, we only offer the road test in English, and that is consistent with best practices across other jurisdictions as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on the House File 4? If not, Senator Pratt.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. It sounds like this is going to be the closing comments, so let me just say a couple of things specific to the Finance Committee. And Mr. Chair, the Republicans came in this morning with some good faith amendments to bring some controls around this bill. We are using a fund, the Vehicle Services Fund, that taxes Minnesotans for purposes that have no nexus to this bill. And even if we were to count these two accounts as one account, let's say we, even though they're statutorily,
Somebody leans against the lights every now and then. Continue,
they are
Senator Pratt.
statutorily separate. And yet, let's say we did want to count them as a combined account, as Senator Champion indicated that the department has conveyed. This account will be in a deficit situation by fiscal year '27. And Republicans came forward and said, we should be supporting this with general fund money. And we were declined. Mr. Chair, we looked at the fiscal note and we took it at its face value to say that we expect the volumes to change. You just mentioned that you voted against the Draheim bill because you wanted to ensure that we had enough examiners. Yet, Mr. Chair, the examiners are the only FTE that are reduced in half in the fiscal note. The Draheim amendment was to cut the administrative staff in half. And we were declined. And so just on the financial aspects of this bill, I am very concerned with how this committee and this Senate is moving forward. Mr. Chair, the minority has tried on a number of these headline bills to make good faith changes to the bills, and I think there's been little collaboration, little cooperation among the two sides, and I'm concerned that it seems that the bills are being written and managed by special interest groups in back rooms rather than here in the Finance Committee. So, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to lay out for the record that the Draheim amendment was really to cut administrative staff, and the examination staff is already being cut per DVS's assessment, that we are using Minnesota's taxpayer funds in a way that is statutorily inappropriate, and for purposes that have no nexus to the reason that we collected them. And just from a financial standpoint, Mr. Chair, I urge members to vote no.
Thank you. Senator Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members. I listened carefully. I like this committee so much because I always feel like we're taking a very thoughtful look at the issues before us. And in this committee today, we debated some amendments and accepted them, and debated some amendments and rejected them. And that is the process. And it feels like we are doing, in good faith, the work that we are sent to do on behalf of Minnesotans. And I'm grateful for that. I'm also struck by the fact that we are in a room filled with people who have been participating in this process for many, many years. And I think it's important to note that over the course of time, there are people in this room who have camped outside of our state government to raise this issue. They have slept outside of the governor's office to raise our attention on this issue. And today, we are in the Finance Committee and properly debating the policy because you have raised this issue and the legislature is taking it up and taking it up seriously. That's the way this democratic process works. And I want to thank Senator Champion and Senator Mohammed, but also the people who are both in this room and listening for their faith in a process that can result in a public policy that serves better the people of Minnesota. Thank you.
Senator Mohammed, any closing comments? Senator
I
Champion?
will give it to my co-author to give our closing statement.
Senator Champion?
Mr. Chair, and to the committee, first of all, let me pause and say thank you so very much for considering this important piece of policy that is before you. You know, when I look around the room and when I think about the various steps that have been taken in order to bring this bill to this place, I'm both renewed and yet sometimes challenged. And you might say, what am I challenged by? I'm challenged by sometimes when we don't articulate what is before us in a fair way. And here's what I mean by that. That this is not a headline bill. This is not something that we have just put forward because there's splash. This has been worked on for years. I mean, many years. So it's not really a headline bill, and yes, this bill has some changes than what we did before. But what is an important learning about what was done before is that even when it was a different time, because we didn't have Real ID and Enhanced ID, we didn't have any of that. And when we made a good faith effort to really work across the aisle in order to make sure, and we're still working, working across the aisle. But even back then, when we made some concessions, none of my friends on the other side who helped me and thought through what needed to happen voted for the bill. No one voted for it on the GOP side. And I am, of all people, don't ever try to get into Democrat, GOP. I try to work across the aisle because I think that's important when we are thinking about Minnesotans. The other thing that challenges me, and I hope that we think seriously about this, there's no special interest groups who have put this bill forward. That unfortunately seems to diminish the fact that we have Minnesotans who are in this room who have an interest in getting a driver's license. There's a difference there. I'm looking around at the many faces who work in our wonderful state, need an opportunity to get there. I'm looking at children and their parents who want to make sure that they get to soccer and school, and those who've been in the shadows and driving in a way that we want to make sure that is done differently. And what do I mean by differently? So that they can demonstrate that they have the capacity and they know about the street signs and they have insurance and that we are all embracing public safety. And last but certainly not least, we have a department who is articulated with clarity based on the years of experience, what they need to do and must do in order to make sure that the tenets that are outlined in this bill are performed well. So members, I just hope that when we talk about these things, that we do it with a sense of clarity and conviction, regardless of our ideological perspective. We're talking about Minnesotans, and that we want to do everything that we can in order to create a pathway so that they're treated with dignity and respect, whether we agree or not. That should be at the core of what we do. So please, members, let's try not to say things like this is a headline bill or that there's special interest group. It's not, it's Minnesotans, and we've been working on this for many, many years. And with that being said, thank you for just hearing me just for a brief moment, and I hope that there's something that we've done or said that would make you proud and for you to say, yes, I'm going to support this initiative. And so thank you, Mr. Chair, for the time that you have given us. So we hope that you will vote yes on the bill before the committee.
Thank you. Senator Mohammed moves House File 4 be recommended to pass. Any further discussion? As amended, be recommended to pass. Thank you, Senator Pappas. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion prevails. We will take a 3-minute recess because there are a lot of people who want to leave the room, and we will resume with Senator Draheim's bill in 3 minutes.
Hello to them. We should go say hello to them. They have 8:30 together.
The committee will come back to order. We have House File 121, Senator Draheim. Welcome to the other side of the table.
Thanks, Chair Marty. We have the competency restoration portion of the mental health bill from last year. Thank you for all the support on that bill. This is a fix-it bill, a technical bill, but we do have an amendment to fix the bill, and I'd like to offer the A1. And Mr. Nauman is the one that pointed this out to me, and I don't know if he wants to explain to the group.
We're, oh,
It should be in the packet, I believe,
oh,
Chair.
I didn't see it in the packet, but it's in the packet, apparently. Thank you. Senator Draheim moves the A1 fix-it amendment to the fix-it bill. Okay, Mr. Nauman, can you speak to the amendment?
I think I just handed my copy away. Thank you. Madam Chair, or Mr. Chair, and Senators, the language, we're working off the House File 121. The language on 1.2 of the amendment clarifies that the appropriation is in fact a one-time appropriation. And then on lines 3 and 4, the amendment clarifies a technical, deletes the effective date and replaces it with this act is effective the day following final enactment to deal with a technical concern about when the bill will become effective. The existing language makes sections 1 through 37 of the bill effective the day following final enactment, but not the effective date. So I think this is a little bit clearer.
Very clear. Further discussion on the A1 amendment. If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Further discussion on the bill and the,
Chair, if
Go
I
ahead.
could. Thank you. The biggest change to the bill really is the language from competency restoration to competency attainment. It was felt that attainment more accurately states what the whole program purpose is. And then there's some duplications that were omitted or removed. Pretty straightforward other than that.
and the attainment as opposed to restoration is some may not have been competent, so you're not restoring it, you're attaining it, okay?
Correct.
Discussion on the bill. Senator Pappas.
Just a comment, this is from last year, right, Senator Draheim?
Correct. This was
And-
the
and-
last minute amendment, or we took from the House.
Yeah.
at Literally the last day of session.
Oh, so there was no technical corrections bill where this could have been corrected then? So this board has just been in limbo since then, unable to operate?
Yes, at a time when we could use it. Unfortunately, it isn't able to function because we had the drafting incorrect. And when we took, anyway, it happens. We're here to fix it today and move on and hopefully do the good work that the intent is of the bill from last year.
Okay, thank you.
And we're hoping it can go as quickly as possible. Further discussion? If not, Senator Draheim moves House File 121 as amended be recommended to pass. No further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Committee members, that's it for today's agenda. We are planning to be meeting on either next Tuesday or Wednesday. I believe there are two bills likely to be up. I'm trying to find them. We're going to be a House, let's see, Senate File 667, Senator Kunish's Indian Family Preservation Act modifications, and Senate File 5, which is my catalytic converter bill. And, but it'll be either Tuesday or Wednesday. And then on Thursday, we're going to have a presentation from MMB on the Stadium Reserve. But no bills on Thursday. Any discussion, anything else? If no further
Well,
business,
Mr. Chairman, just the sooner we know that, obviously, the
I
better we
understand.
can schedule other things.
we're trying to get that
All
quicker.
right, thank you.
I thought it was going to be Wednesday, but we'll let you know as soon as possible. With that, no further business. This meeting is adjourned.